Is everyone hear everything okay? Okay, great. Well, welcome to the February meeting of the Housing Advisory Board. I'm slightly disappointed that we're not meeting in person today, but we can blame that on the weather and nothing else. We'll I'll call this meeting to order and start with a roll call among the board members. So Philip Ogren.
Here.
Julianne Ramsey.
Here.
Terry Pamos. Danny Teodoro. I don't think Danny is here yet, but we have four. That's technically a quorum, right? Yeah, 4 out of 7. So we are good to go. We also have John Gerstel, our ex officio member from Planning Board. Very much enjoyed our joint meeting with Planning Board recently. So I'm going to review the agenda and mention something. Oh gosh, I got unstable internet according to this. Can anyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. One item that's not on the agenda is that there's a community working group forming around the airport, Boulder Airport. It's not specifically tasked with a housing outcome in any way. It's just really to look at the future of the airport and its uses. But there has been a request to have a liaison from HAB to that community working group. So if that's official, we can talk about who might want to do that. I don't know if we have to wait for a formal request. Jay, do you know?
You have the formal request, so yes.
Who requested? You requested, or they requested?
They requested, and it should, in the memo that Tiffany sent out, should have covered everything you need to know about it. And okay. I can share a little bit more, but all we're doing is adding it to the agenda right now.
I can mention that Planning Board also received a request and has appointed a member to participate there. Take it pretty seriously, because one of the options that they're looking into is whether airport area could be converted to housing as an alternative use of that area. Right. And that's one of the largest plots of land that the city has available to it. So Planning Board takes it pretty seriously.
Okay. Tiffany, is it possible for you to activate the captions? For some reason people are breaking up and I'm not catching every word, so I'm not clear whether Jay said we're going to appoint a liaison tonight or not.
Apologies, I thought I had done the captions.
Okay. It says it's enabled, but I'm not seeing them on my screen.
I don't see them either, but
okay.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Give me a second. Let me play around with it because they're showing on my screen.
I actually can see them.
Okay.
So I clicked show captions at the bottom and now they're appearing.
Interesting. Yeah, so Michael, yeah, all you're doing is adding this agenda item to the agenda.
Okay.
Right now,
okay.
And we'll go into more detail. And yes, the city Department of Transportation is asking for a HAB member to join.
Okay. Should we put that in matters from the staff then?
Sure, we can do that. Yep.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to review the agenda. We've already done item 1, call to order and roll call. We're reviewing the agenda. That's item 2. We'll be approving the minutes next. Then we'll have public people get 3 minutes each on that. Then matters from the board is item 5. We'll be covering, looks like 4 items. We have a guest speaker, Holly Hendrickson from Housing and Human Services, who will be discussing the middle income down payment pilot. Discussing again Governor Polis's housing agenda, which was a matter before council. I think it was just last week or the week before, and we did discuss that briefly at our last meeting. Zoning for affordable housing discussion continues, and then listening session topics. None of those items, as far as I know, are items that we'll be voting on. The first one's for input and the others are for feedback. 6 is matters from staff. We'll discuss that liaison to the community working group for the airport. And item 7, we'll have a meeting debrief and a calendar check on our next meeting, and we'll try to adjourn by 9 o'clock. So with that, I will move on to the approval of the minutes and ask for a motion to approve the January 25th, actually that should be 2023. I think there's a typo in my agenda, January 25th, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor of approving the January 25th minutes? Aye. So passed 4-0. Okay, do we have members of the public who would like to comment now with item 4 on the agenda?
Tiffany?
Yep, we do. We have 3 individuals here from the public to have their hands up. So if you guys want to go over the rules, and then I will display the timer.
Great.
Okay.
I will. Oh,
Thank you.
Tiffany, can you enable my screen sharing?
Okay. Hi guys.
Hey, Danny, welcome.
Thank you. That was tough.
So let's note that our Vice Chair, Danny Teodoro, is now present. So we have a full attendance of this meeting, 5 out of our 5 members.
Great. All right. Well, I'm just going to give a very quick overview of the rules of, where is that? There we go. So in terms of for public engagement, so the city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. So it's designed to support the physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board and commission members as well. For more information about this vision and the community engagement, there's a link to a website. The following are basic rules of decorum that you'll find in the Boulder Revised Code and that support this vision. So we request that anyone testifying that all those remarks shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts and otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. And participants are required to sign up to speak using the name that you are commonly known by. Individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. And that's it.
Thank you, Jay. And okay, before we go to public comment, I just want to mention that we do have 2 openings on HAB, and they sent everyone a copy of the applications. I can't remember if there were 8 or 10, but I was pleased to see such high interest in HAB. And my understanding is that Tara Weiner, a councilwoman, is doing the interviews, and the selection will be made on March 16th. So we'll have a full board of 7th before our next meeting. I believe they're impaneled right away, aren't they, Jay?
Yep, if we can get them signed in, sworn in, yes.
Great. Okay, thank you.
All right.
With that, I believe we have 2 guests who would like to make a public comment, and we'll start with Lynn Siegel.
All right, give me 1 second and let me get the timer up. Is it backwards for you guys or just for me?
That looks right.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. All right, Lynn, here you go.
I'd like to bring up the latest thing with the planning board on middle income housing at 22 Pearl and some of the issues with it. 300 square feet units, mini, micro ELUs basically. No parking, $1,700 to $2,600. And for 80 to 120% AMI. And something I think there needs to be a workshop for the community, because when I keep on spewing things that might not be true, but I don't have any way to talk to people to get them correct. But my feeling was, if you go for AMI of 80 to 120%, that's what the 1,700 to 2,600 represents. Then are you held to that after the project's been approved? Do you have to maintain that? Is that essentially a form of rent control? Wouldn't that be against the state that's trying to get rent control? But my impression is that they basically go to market rate once the project's approved. And across the street from this project, 22 Pearl, is Whittier, which for 3 years now, we still don't know why it burned down. And those were 1,595 square feet for 450 square feet and a parking space, which is considerably, cheaper. To me, it seems like the more that you're pushing, and last night there was a very big development at 5675 or something like that, commercial life sciences or something. With the development of all these jobs, what you get is more high-end demand for housing, and the missing middle becomes the higher and higher, and you just get more split between the super rich and the homeless, and increase the demand for middle income housing. And it's kind of a spurious appearance of this 80 to 120% of AMI, because the AMI keeps on going up, and it seems like it's not indexed to rent. So housing costs and land value keeps on going up and up. And then we have the Millennium with 947 bedrooms in it. And eventually it's an issue of, if you want to have parking reductions, you want to have.
Excuse me, Lynn.
Yes.
Appreciate your comments, but your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, there's no timer displayed.
There's
on
not.
my end.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at Tiffany's screen. And
no,
for some
it's
reason,
displayed.
It's not displayed on mine. Let me try getting off. The chat was on there. No, it's still not displayed on my screen.
It's in Tiffany's box.
I got.
yeah, go to gallery view and you'll see Tiffany.
It's in a little tiny thing. In
Yeah.
a lot of them,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
the whole screen. I'm sorry. I just need to gauge myself as I'm speaking, so it makes it difficult if you could. It's hard between one board and another, and I follow 10 of them now. So, okay, well,
Hey, I didn't know where to look either, and I'm so used to being in person now and looking at the clock. So this is a new adjustment. But thank you
well,
for your
Michael, you should
comments.
be very happy that you were on a video window tonight. It says
okay.
0. So
Thank
yeah.
you.
Well,
Thank you, Lynn.
I'm sorry. I'll just have
yeah.
to wait for my remarks until next time, but I wanted to add some more, but
Great. We'll see you on March 22nd. For some reason, I don't have all the members of the public displayed, but I believe there was another person, Hannah George. And was there anyone else, Tiffany?
Hannah is the
Yes.
only one with her hand up.
Okay, Hannah George, please take it away.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name's Hannah. I'm a young professional here in Boulder. And I'm just really excited for this missing middle conversation. I think we all know housing is an issue. That's why we're here. And we're all here to get solutions. So yeah, I just want to lend my support to creative ideas that emphasize density and sustainable transit options and sharing. I'm an independent co-op resident as well, but looking long-term at building my life here. You know, I want to know that I have a future here in Boulder when median home values on Zillow are skyrocketing. So I'll be closely following this, excited for the presentation from Holly, but I just want to really emphasize that, yeah, I am in support of density. I think it can be really beautiful, and sharing is caring. So that's really the summary of what I'm here to say. I'll be tuning in, and thank you all so much for your service to the community. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and we hope you'll come to more of our meetings and listen in and comment. And you know, you hit the nail on the head. Those are the issues that we are charged with grappling in, at least for the balance of 2023. One last call for public comment. Is there anyone else?
There are no other hands.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to item 5 of the agenda, matters from the board. And we have Holly Hendrickson here to give a presentation for our input on middle income down payment pilot program. Holly, good to see you again. We look forward to your presentation.
Hello, thank you for having me. I will share my screen. Let's see. I was really looking forward to being in person, as this was going to be like the first in-person presentation since COVID, but weather ruined that for me. So I hope it's as engaging here on Zoom. All right, so so like you all know, so I'm here to talk about the middle income down payment assistance pilot program. We're set to take this presentation and submit a memo to City Council for the April 20th meeting. So the meeting in one of the meetings in April. So I'd like to consider this the kind of the official launch of our middle income down payment assistance roadshow. Kind of this is the first presentation that we're giving to the community. And one of our goals in sharing this is to really get feedback to try to make sure that there are no gaps in kind of how we're conceptualizing this moving forward. So we welcome feedback, critiques, and any questions along the way. So I'll jump in here. So just a reminder to you all, this was part of one of City Council's priorities back in 2022 that they established, was figuring out how to launch this middle income down payment assistance pilot program, kind of get it from the concept that it has been to implementation. So that's what we're trying, that's our charge here to kind of move this forward. So the purpose and kind of what we're doing here today is we want to, this thing has been a long time in the making. So we want to kind of review, just briefly review the history of where this pilot program came from and where we are today. We want to review some of the unique components to kind of help us kind of conceptualize and get our feet on the ground of what the intention of this program is. There's also been some changes, some iterations from the first concept to where it is now. And so we want to talk through some of those big changes. And then finally, we want to figure out, just identify some ways to figure out how to move this forward. There's some kind of decision points, some questions that still need to be answered. And so we want to figure out how to move this forward as best as we can. So like I said, this thing has been a long time in the making. So I wanted to just quickly provide kind of an overview of the evolution of this program from its conception to where we are today. So this started way back in 2016, well before I was with the city. The city established a middle income housing strategy. And in response to that strategy, former Mayor Sam Weaver and current City Council member Bob Yates created this pilot concept in a white paper. The white paper is attached to the memo that was sent out to you all, so you can have some context there if you want to dive a little bit deeper into it. That concept, this kind of initial concept of this pilot program, was put out in 2017. And by 2019, the wheels really hit the ground with it. Council provided direction on kind of some of the mechanics to get this thing moving, to get it out the door. And then in November of 2019, the city voters passed a ballot initiative to fund this program. So 2019 was a huge year, but of course, just like everything, COVID kind of put the brakes on and put the pilot on hold. So in 2020, it was officially put on hold. And then in 2022, just last year, we started gearing up again to figure out how to implement this pilot program, given the history and the original concept, and also given the kind of these broader changes in the housing market and the economy that COVID brought on, to figure out how to make it all work with all of these big changes. So that's where we are today. The other thing I wanted to do is in the memo and for this presentation, there's just a lot of terms that we need. I just wanted to kind of briefly define, so we're all on the same page, just to make sure kind of this conversation, like we're all on the same ground here. So the first one is affordable or attainable housing. So this is kind of what we conceptualize as our 30% rule in housing. So it's a general rule that households shouldn't be paying more than about 30% of their income on housing. So in the memo that was sent, this like 30% rule is kind of the backbone of a lot of the models that we use to identify what affordability looks like now and over time. The concept of permanently affordable housing in the city, it's just these deed restrictions on a property to make sure that a property is affordable over time in perpetuity, so forever. And then the last one, and probably the most important one for this presentation, and certainly in the memo, is the concept of area median income. And probably you all know this, but I'll just have to put it out there to make sure we're kind of all on the same page here. So the concept of area median income is determined by HUD. It's federally determined. It's not determined by us. The feds use the Boulder Metropolitan Statistical Area, so it's specific. The numbers that are created for the area median income are specific to our area. And this just means that at 100% of the area median income, half of the households in the area make less than that and half make more. It seems pretty simple, but it feels important to kind of always make sure that we all know what we're talking about here. So in 2022, the area median income for a household of 3 was $125,000. So that's kind of, just to make sure we're on the same page, like I said, this area median income concept. All right. So another thing I wanted to make sure to emphasize in terms of like back to the basics here, is just the uniqueness of this program. So the Middle Income Down Payment Assistance Pilot Program is conceptualized here, and as we're trying to implement, combines 2 very common elements and program offerings that the city currently offers and that are common all over the United States. The first element is this down payment assistance to a middle income household, and the second is this permanent deed restriction. So like I said, the city currently has a down payment assistance program and a permanently affordable home ownership program that creates permanently deed restricted homes. But this program essentially is a new program that combines these 2 elements to create a whole new program. One of the things that has created these different iterations of this pilot program is like This is a truly innovative program. We haven't found anything like it across the US. And so to figure out how to kind of create this in a way that has appropriate guardrails, that we think it's going to be effective over time, we can't lean on another municipality or jurisdiction. We're kind of making sure we're doing this in real time here. All right, so we can get into some of the specifics here. So like, as I've discussed, there's been a few iterations to this program over time. So the first, so I'll just lay out some of the parameters of the program as it exists today. So in terms of down payment assistance, the down payment assistance component, houses earning up to 120% of that area median income are eligible for the down payment assistance. The maximum assistance for per household is up to $200,000, or 15% of the value of the home, but a maximum of $200,000. So in this newest iteration, one of the parameters is that the repayment of this down payment assistance is due at 15 years or when the home is sold. So this is one of the components that has changed between the initial concept to today. We can get into those details, but we'll just leave it at that for now. One of the big items that has changed between 2019 and today is that the down payment assistance is offered to the first home buyer at a 0% interest loan. This was not conceptualized in the first iteration, but for various reasons, kind of this was required to have this 0% interest. And who covers those interest payments in this in our new program parameters? The city will be covering those interest payments. We've calculated, tried to like model over time what the maximum cost could be for the city per household, and given various interest rates, and at that maximum of 15-year of a loan, those costs could be anywhere between $40,000 to $112,000 per unit or per household. The other side of this coin, there's always these two components that we have to look at: the down payment assistance and the deed restriction. In terms of the deed restriction, so the homeowner, this first homeowner who gets this down payment assistance, also agrees to make the home that they're purchasing permanently affordable through a deed restriction that limits appreciation over time. One of the big decision points is that setting this appreciation rate to make sure it's appropriate over time, and we'll kind of get into that conversation in a bit. But we have proposed a concept to set that appreciation, kind of pegging it to the current permanently affordable home ownership program plus 2%, to lean on some kind of current methodology, so we don't have to recreate the wheel. And then another big change in this new iteration of the program, the parameters of the program here, is that there's no income qualification requirement for the second household and all subsequent home buyers of this property. So this is a big one. The house is deed restricted to create this appreciation limit, but it's not deed restricted to income qualify over time. So this is kind of where, we're trying to, because there's been so many changes, this is kind of like, we want to, feel this out. This is kind of one of the decision points, kind of given that these changes are pretty big. The changes to the parameters and the terms of the program, I've got like various ways. We want to make sure that there's agreement from council and from everyone else that this is like something we should be moving forward on, considering these changes. I don't know if you all prefer to just wait till the end for questions, or if we want to start. I'll leave it up to you, but sometimes some of this can get a little meaty, so I don't want to kind of like blow through everything and be like, wait, we lost you in like slide 4. So let me know how you want me to proceed.
I'm okay with waiting, holding on questions. How does everyone else feel about it? I guess you can jump in if you have one.
I think it's good to wait and then try to discuss it in full.
Cool.
as well.
Okay, I'll try to keep you hooked the whole time. All right, so now we can really dive into the details of the specifics here. So in the memo and what we'll kind of just quickly review today, we're trying to weigh the risks and rewards for participation into this program for these three entities involved. The first home buyers, so what are the risks and rewards for them? Any subsequent home buyers, risks and rewards, and then of course for the city of Boulder, because these parameters have changed slightly. So the first is, for the first home buyer, what are the risks and rewards here? So I actually think for the first home buyer, it feels a bit more straightforward. There's one of the huge rewards of participating in this program or benefits is just being able to, you get $200,000 of interest-free borrowing, which essentially increases your purchasing power, and you're gaining equity appreciation on that $200,000. So there's a wealth generation component with this interest-free borrowing, essentially. So in terms of the increase of purchasing power, so this is not a statistical or by any means kind of a rigorous analysis, but I went into Redfin to see what that actual increase of purchasing power would mean for a household of 3 earning 120% of the AMI. So I just did this last week and found for a household of 3 earning 120% of the AMI without interest, without the additional down payment assistance, there were 8 homes in the city that were affordable to this theoretical household. With this $200,000 down payment assistance boost, that number increased to 13. So not quite doubling, but kind of increasing. There's an increase of options and certainly an increase of purchasing power for households participating in this program, but especially this first household. And in terms of this wealth generation, like I said, the actual appreciation rate certainly needs to be discussed and identified before moving forward. But in this graph here, I just provided interest rate appreciation rates at three different amounts, from kind of a lower appreciation rate peg to a higher peg. And there is still, at 15 years, there's still quite a bit of equity that a household participating, this household earning 120%, kind of maxing out this borrowing. There is a significant net equity gain over time, over that 15-year period. So the first household, it kind of feels a little bit more straightforward. For the risks, when thinking about the risks, I think there's similar risks to any real estate transactions. We can't remove all risks, but these aren't above and beyond, as we've kind of seen it, beyond what would exist in any real estate transaction in the city. So moving on to the subsequent home buyers. So for subsequent home buyers, just as a reminder, that there's no down payment assistance available for second home buyers. There's also no income qualification for a buyer of one of these deed restricted properties. So as a result, kind of an important decision point here is establishing an appreciation rate that that kind of serves two functions. One thing it needs to serve is it needs to be the appreciation rate on a home brought into the program needs to be high enough for the first household to repay this $200,000 after 15 years. But the whole goal of the program is to make sure that there is a level of affordability in this deed restricted house in the long term. So this establishing an appreciation rate that kind of makes sure, ensuring that it fills this kind of middle income affordability gap that doesn't currently exist, is one of the important components of kind of establishing what this appreciation rate should look like. So in the in the memo, we've kind of outlined a few different numbers and kind of reasonings. But so I'll just shorten it for the purpose of this presentation. We think pegging the appreciation rate to at 4.2%, or essentially 2% percentage points more than the affordable homeownership program, fills this gap, or creates more of a spectrum of homeownership opportunities within the city. It's above the current option in terms of the deed restricted homes that exist in the city right now, but it's well below market rate, kind of preserving this like little slice of affordability now and in the future. Down here, where this yellow square is, it's just to show if the appreciation rate is pegged at 4.2%, a household brought into this program, the property brought into this program at 15 years would be affordable to a household earning 164% of the area median income. And at 30 years, it would be affordable to a household earning 209% of the area median income. So this kind of spectrum that we're trying to create, these like affordability levels are much, much higher than what we would consider affordable for programs now that the city administers, but also much less than the market. So it's kind of the gap we're looking to fill. All right, so again, one of these big decision points, and we can talk about this more later, is just identifying this appropriate rate of appreciation for houses in this pilot program. That 4.2% is not set in stone, and certainly discussion can be had around those numbers and concepts. All right, so finally, the last entity here that we wanted to assess the risks and rewards is the city of Boulder. So what's in it for the city? What are the risks and what are the rewards? So the big risk in this most recent iteration of the pilot program is this cost to the city. It was not contemplated in previous versions of this pilot program. So this would be a new cost going forward. So we, in this table, kind of the middle income pilot program, we kind of identify the costs and the impacts on the affordability. And as you can see, the costs of each unit brought into the pilot program aren't outrageous, looking at the units brought into the city, into the current homeownership affordable program. Certainly well within norms, but because it's kind of a new concept, that's one of the risks and things that needs to be discussed moving forward. And in terms of rewards, I think what this pilot program would allow, it creates each of these houses brought into the pilot program through a deed restriction creates this unique housing product that doesn't exist today. And it would potentially be available to these middle income earning households in the future. So that's a reward. It feels like it's just a concept now, but that's kind of the reward that we're looking to when we're conceptualizing what rewards would look like for the city. And in terms of that conversation, I think one of the things that we've talked to a few people is just this concept of creating these market alternatives to create this greater spectrum. So this kind of feels like a very overwhelming graph when I'm looking at it right now. But the idea here is, there's a kind of more of a ladder that's created within the housing market that wouldn't necessarily exist in like any kind of naturally occurring way. So this graph, so we can see the percentages indicate, the top line indicates area median income affordability for each of the programs at 15 years. The bottom indicates that affordability level, the AMI affordability at 30 years. So houses brought into the permanently affordable homeownership program now and in 15 years and in 30 years, they will be forever affordable to this like maximum 120% AMI household. Then you have the market affordability on the other end, which is just kind of like skyrockets outside of affordability in any kind of like realistic way for a middle income household. Another current offering is the current down payment assistance program, which there's details in the memo on this one. That program is intended to help individuals get into the market, but not do anything to preserve affordability for the homes. And so there's no real affordability cap for the homes brought into that program, although it does help people purchase homes in the city. So that's where we come with the middle income down payment assistance program. Over time, at the 15-year mark and at the 30-year mark, it kind of fills this gap. It creates more of a spectrum for people looking to enter into the market with middle income earning power. So that's all the meaty details. I promise no more percentages. I won't discuss AMI anymore, unless you want me to. I just wanted to make a quick note about the next steps. So I think one of the challenging things here is to kind of figure out how to conceptualize what success looks like and how we're going to be measuring this program over time. So say we get the go ahead to move full speed ahead towards implementation in like the very, very short term, the now. In the next year, maybe 2 years, our goal in terms of measuring success is just to evaluate participation. Are there households interested in this? Is it competitive to the other down payment assistance products and deed restricted products that are being offered currently? So that's kind of a measure of success, but that's kind of pretty basic on measuring participation and maybe trying to tweak things here and there to get more participation. But I think it's important to note that this long term, like this is like a long term in terms of figuring out how to measure success. Because there's a 0% interest for the first household for this down payment assistance, and the term is up to 15 years, it's possible that we won't be able to measure the outcomes for the first household, how the deed restricted property looks in terms of market affordability and the cost impacts to the city until 15 years after the first down payment assistance is taken out. So we would just want to be clear as day that what we look at success we might not really be able to evaluate that for quite a long time. And I think with that, that's all I had. I left these questions here, but can certainly end the slideshow if we want to just chat. You guys just let me know how you want to proceed.
Great, excellent presentation. Thank you so much. I have a number of questions, but I'll let others on the board fire away first.
Yeah, Holly, I would say stop sharing
That
unless
sounds good.
someone asks you to bring up a slide.
Easier for me.
Questions from board members?
I've got questions and comments. Can I go first?
Absolutely, Philip, please.
Yeah, great. So one of the sort of basic things that I was curious about is just what's the scale of this program likely to be? What's the budget? How much tax is being raised for this program?
So Jay, you might have to help me out with the total numbers here. But the ballot initiative, I think, allowed, what was it like? It was $10 million?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yes. Okay, I can remember things.
All right, so that's maybe $200,000 loans or $100,000 loans, something in that ballpark. per year
No, that's total.
total? Okay.
So we would have to go back to the voters if we were to exceed that 10 million. But I
Interesting.
think the intent is really just to get something out there and gauge interest at this point. I think that's what the sponsors want. So former Mayor Weaver and Councilmember Yates, just to kind of test the waters and see what could work.
So one question, or maybe it's just a comment. I think a program like this would be really cool or appropriate for like Boulder Housing Coalition or for a community land trust or some other group, Thistle or something like that, that wanted to buy a property. Is that something that's being considered, or is this really strictly only for family units?
So yeah, I mean, I did explore that with David Adamson, specifically about the Goose Creek Land Trust. It's super challenging because the idea is all we're doing is offering an additional loan product in addition to what they would normally get on the market. So they would get their first mortgage right through a market lender, and then that lender would actually contact our CDFI, our Community Development Finance institution, and so the city is not even involved, but it's there. So from my discussions with them, it seems better positioned to help individuals purchase their homes. So, but if there's the case with those other types of, if someone's purchasing a home, say in in David's project, it could work. But in terms of providing construction loans and financing, that part just
Yeah, the use case I actually had in mind was there was a house down the street from me that was a group home that sold recently, and I thought, oh, that would be perfect for Boulder Housing Coalition to set up a co-op in this house that's already set up for group living. And it seems like if there was a down payment assistance program that could help that kind of scenario, then that would be a good fit. But so anyways, I just thought I'd raise that as a possibility.
No, absolutely. I don't see any issue with that scenario.
Cool. And so then the last question I have on my little list here is it seems like there's kind of maybe this is just theoretical, but it seems like for that second buyer who's not income restricted, you could find yourself in a situation where a house is on the market for less than what it would be normally, and so that would attract a lot of buyers, and then you'd have a situation where you have to choose from a large number of buyers, which seems like it feels a little weird to me. Like, I mean, one of the nice things about a market system is that you don't have to evaluate who's the best fit for the community, for example. It's just whoever shows up at the highest bid gets it. I know that's sorry, I wasn't very nuanced in qualifying that, but I'm just curious, have you anticipated what you would do if you had 10 buyers that were all qualified and ready to pull the trigger?
So we haven't, I haven't anticipated that. I think one thing that we assume that's kind of going to be not attracted to many people who are just out there on the, that can buy a market rate home, is because there's this limited appreciation. And so I think the concept here is we're assuming that it's not a super competitive product in the rest of the market, and so maybe it wouldn't. But we have a current the current affordable homeownership program kind of has systems in place to sort these questions out. And Jay, I can't speak to that program as much because I don't administer it, but there are systems in place. One of the things for this pilot program is it would be administered by current staff that administer the permanently affordable homeownership program. So those kind of decisions within how it's actually administered in the community and how those decisions would be made, I would assume would come down to like some policies and procedures when we get down to the nitty gritty on how that's like actually dealt with.
Yep, I think that's a great answer. I mean, it would be a great problem to have if there's that much competition for it. We don't, this type of, any sort of down payment assistance is not, it's not for everybody. So I don't think there's gonna be, dozens of people lined up. If there are, that's great. Then we can figure out how to deal with that at the time.
That's all my comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Those were great questions. Any other hands up from board members? Yes, Danny.
Can you hear me? I was, okay.
Yes.
Holly, thank you. Presentation was wonderful, very detailed, and I like all the little graphs. I do have a handful of questions, just trying to wrap my head around it and stuff. I mean, I think what I'd say is the way I look at it, and Philip, based on the point you just made, but the way I look at it is what we're trying to do here is build up affordable housing stock. And so in other words, whomever goes into these units as a second, third homeowner, et cetera, it's got the deed restriction in place, which means that it's going to control those housing prices moving forward. So my first question is just to clarify, when we say home, we're talking about multifamily too, because I saw those prices invariably, that's kind of what we're wrestling with, right? And the thing that jumped out to me is a lot of those multifamily, especially when you deal with that delta with the $200,000, really high association dues. And I know, and the reason why I'm bringing it up, because I know that a lot of people have come on here and groused about that before. It's always a challenge. It's certainly always a challenge, especially when you have somebody in a unit that's cost controlled and other people that their unit's not cost controlled, and you get special assessments, et cetera, et cetera. So I was just wondering how that might play out. The other thing that was interesting to me, I just wanted to see how the primary lender goes about, figuring out how much the buyer has to bring to closing. Because if you go on the typical expectation, I know there's things like FHA, which can get very sticky too. But if you're looking at like 20% of closing, are they looking at this 200,000 as part of that, or how are they calculating that? So what's the challenge to the buyer in terms of what they come forward on that? So I'll start with those two.
Oh, so the association one, I mean, I think that, so the participant, the first buyer in this program, gets to choose the house that they're liking, right?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be up to us to be able to kind of control any of those details, right? Like, it's just, they get to make that decision, and then that house is, that property is like in the program in terms of like that just appreciation cap. So I guess I haven't thought of how that, like the implications of that in terms of like the HOAs over time and kind of like the comparables to other properties. But again, I think thinking about it now in real time, I think we would just kind of lean on how that's administered through our current permanently affordable homeownership program, because they deal with these kind of issues and figuring out how to navigate those waters all the time. So I don't know if this would be specific. I don't think this would be different in terms of how they negotiate or like, how they look forward.
I guess is what I would say is I know that it's been a little bit challenging already for that program in some circumstances. And I guess so one of my suggestions would be that there's some sort of criteria, some sort of like checkoff that the city can do and say, okay, there are a lot of standard things you can take a look at with the HOA and say, okay, this works because, we feel this association is kind of curtailed, et cetera. The variation from association to association is really remarkable. And there's a lot of objective things that you can take a look at and see what's there. So that's just my thought on that first issue.
So Dan, might be able to jump in a little bit. So every time we have a new potential home buyer in our affordable housing program, there's an HOA checklist, and we always encourage them to research the HOA that they're buying into to understand what are the dues, how many increases have happened over the past 10 years, and to really encourage them to get involved in HOA.
Yeah,
So education is really our best bet. And we've talked about before, we do have a special assessment program, but we're not going to be able to solve the HOA issue with this pilot. But it's definitely, we're definitely cognizant of it.
yeah. And I guess, Shay, what I'm saying is it's not a question of solving it, but there are a few things. So like if I'm representing a buyer, and there's a lot of incredibly expensive multifamily units now, right? If I'm representing a buyer, there's a whole bunch of things that if I'm talking to the buyer and they want me to consult with them on HOA things in terms of their due diligence with the purchase, there's a bunch of things that I would check off to say, okay, what special assessments are coming, et cetera, how old's the roof, and whatever it may be. And I just think maybe the city doing that, because this is a big investment for the city. And if we're talking about the notion that maybe 50 or 100, buyers can do this, having that could be a good way to preserve the well-being of the program, which I'm very supportive of. That's just my suggestion there. It's worth I could do that stuff in about an hour and a half, right? It's worth doing that just to make sure that, you don't get caught in a buzzsaw. That's a comment, not a question, I guess I'd say.
So in terms of your second question about the primary lender and how they would look at all of this, I think the number we chose of max 200,000, it's really the max would be like 15%. The down payment assistance would be 15% of the total loan. And then in our models, we assumed that the buyer would bring a 5% down payment to meet that 20% at closing. And so that was the idea there, so they can avoid some mortgage insurance and all these other things. And so obviously these numbers and all those details would be dealt with by those administering the program, but those kind of are the guardrails that we established were to try to create that 20% situation at closing.
And I guess my question, so are the lenders that you've kind of consulted with on this, are they comfortable with that? Because so like I represent a couple of businesses and we're trying to buy affordable housing units for our employees, and I've run into this several times in the past year where the bank said, well, we're not looking at that assistance as part of the down payment. We want you to have 20% of the overall nut, and then we go from there. And so I'm just asking that because I know lenders can be very, very quirky.
Yeah, one thing that, like I said, this is kind of like, this is the beginning of our roadshow, and one thing that we are going to a handful of different lenders to make sure that this is that this is of interest and actually feasible when it's brought forward. So we're trying to do our due diligence on that end to make sure we talk to enough people.
Okay, cool.
I would just add just quickly, part of the reason it took us this long is we had to figure out how do we create a structure that actually works for lenders. And all of the rules that came down the pike in the housing recession. So I think we feel pretty good about it, but like Holly said, we are going to explore it. But that 5% of the purchase price as a down payment, so the 200,000 doesn't count towards that for sure. So they have to have some skin in the game, and that was definitely something that we heard loud and clear from all the different lenders.
Okay, and then the last question, I know this is last question for now, at least. I know this is anathema to even suggest in Boulder, but if we were to look at a flat or down housing market at some point in time, how do we wrestle with that in terms of the fact that we might get kind of behind the eight ball, especially for those buyers, because they owe the $200,000 and the interest, the interest forgiveness is wonderful, but that could there's always the possibility for a net loss. I know you're not supposed to say that in Boulder, but I've been doing real estate law for 25 years, so
Yeah.
just roll with the hypothetical.
Yeah, no, I thought about this too, because I'm like, this is certainly optimistic in how we view our
Right.
over time forever. I think so I did talk to a banker last week and was kind of shopping this idea around. And he brought up this concept that you can't remove all risk from this. Like
Right.
it is a real estate transaction. You can try to create guardrails to make it not super risky and like dragging people down over time. But I mean, I think there's just an inherent risk of somebody coming into the real estate market and purchasing a home, and we can't do anything to abate all risk.
Right.
So I don't know. I know that's not a very satisfying answer.
No, I mean, it's
satisfying.
reality, right? And I guess the whole notion, so the city's got the second lien. So once the first lien's done, then the second lien has to be satisfied, period, right? And if there's a remainder, then ultimately, the city makes a decision whether or not that individual could be personally liable, or if they're going to, consider it a loss or something like that, which is the way it is as a second lien holder typically. So I guess that's kind of the concept now, which makes sense to me, right? It's just one of those risks that's out there.
Mhm.
Anything else, Danny?
No, good for now. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Great.
That was very helpful. Presentation was
Thank you
awesome.
for those questions. I saw Terry Pamos with a hand up.
I'll let you go first, Michael. See if you cover my questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a lot of
Maybe I cover.
clarification, and then I'll have some questions and comments.
Okay.
So if I'm understanding this, I'm sorry, Terry,
Go ahead, sir. No worries.
you wanted me to go? Okay,
Yeah, sure.
okay. So this can be used to buy any kind of home, a condo, a co-op, a townhome, a single family detached home. Is that correct?
Yes.
As long as it's within those price guidelines that you mentioned. Could you use it to buy a home, an affordable home that's already in the deed restricted program?
No.
No. So this is intended partly to increase the stock of homes that are in that program, of which you've identified 21 that are currently listed under 675,000. Is that right? Or is that
Yeah.
the whole universe of homes we're talking about?
It was the whole, this was not a very rigorous statistical sample. So I don't know if I'd lean on that number too heavily, but yeah,
Well,
it's about.
I mean, it seems plausible because we had a realtor attend our joint meeting with the planning board and gave the numbers on home sales in Boulder in the last quarter. And, almost all of them are over $1 million. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a very limited stock of homes for 675 and other. And then in terms of how this works, the city has 10 million, and when that's gone, the program is either got to be renewed or it's done. Is that right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
is there a time frame around that?
So no, there's not. And one thing I'll just say, just to clarify, is for this pilot program, we're not the ballot initiative established like a bond essentially, and we're not tapping into this for the pilot program. It would just be we wouldn't be going down for this pilot phase of this to kind of that full $10 million. This would just we're kind of just testing it out on a few things here and there first, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And the 10 million is also a revolving fund because somebody gets paid back as people sell homes, correct?
Nope, it's not revolving because once
It's not.
the ballot
The
measure
money,
doesn't contemplate reloading that money out. It basically, we can loan out 10 million, we'll get paid back the 10 million theoretically, but then if we want to expand the program or extend it, we would have to go back to the voters.
Mhm.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
And then the theoretical 200,000 down payment essentially is rolled into your mortgage with the city paying the interest on that portion of the down payment. And am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Again, these are all points of clarification. So one of the things you're looking for feedback on is the amount of appreciation. I think in the memo we got, it said that staff was recommending an appreciation that would be greater than what's currently in the affordable housing deed restricted program. What's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so the reasoning, so that rate is in the past 10 years, it's averaged at 2.2%. And we're recommending pegging this pilot program to that rate of the current program using that same methodology plus 2%. And there's a handful of reasons. One, we need to figure out how to make this program somewhat competitive instead of being kind of pegged to that affordable homeownership model and appreciation that exists now. We kind of have to differentiate it. And then the big one is that we need to make sure that the household that borrows that $200,000 can get enough appreciation on their house to be able to repay that $200,000 at 15 years.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as a pilot program, this could potentially affect 21 home buyers, which is not going to solve the missing middle problem, but it's a step in the right direction. So what's the vision for expanding it beyond the pilot if it succeeds?
I think if it succeeds as it exists today, I mean, I would imagine that we'd have to, tweak some parameters here and there before we expand it. But I imagine to take it fully live, we just, I haven't thought that far ahead. That's a challenging question. We're just trying to get this thing out the door as a pilot. But I think we would just use the city as the ballot initiative contemplated, that bonding authority to get the full amount. And then as participation requires and as interest requires, lend out that down payment assistance.
Okay, thank you. And then one more clarification question about those 21 homes. Those are all single family homes, or that's also condos and townhomes?
Oh, that's the all condos, townhomes. It was anything, a 2-bedroom home or more under the $675,000 mark.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty limited stock under the current pricing in Boulder. Okay, thank you. Terry, you had a lot I didn't cover, I'm sure.
This program's been around since it was voted on last time, right? Or no? Has it been, some version of it has been in existence?
No.
No?
Mm-mm. No, this is the pilot that it has not been implemented yet.
Okay, got it. So the city goes out and floats $10 million worth of bonds. People buy them at an interest rate of, what's the assumption of the interest rate that the bonds are being borrowed at, that the city's borrowing the money from bondholders? Do we have an assumption? We have an expectation there? Because those are changing like by the minute right now.
Not 2022, whatever the assumption is.
Very different interest rate.
So we assumed 4.5%, right, Holly, which is what finance told us is the current rate to borrow by the city. But we also modeled 2%, 2 points lower and 2 points higher. That's why we have that range of 40,000 to 112,000 over the life of a loan of $200,000.
Yeah. If you have a $200,000 loan that the city, you're borrowing from the city, and it's at 4%, not is the person, so it's interest free. So does the interest accrue, or it just doesn't exist for the borrower?
It doesn't exist for the borrower. It's what the city pays to borrow money.
Okay, so just so I understand, not accumulating, not accruing it. If you're at 4% on a $200,000 loan, that's $8,000 a year times 15. That's $120,000 of interest over 15 years, not compounding. So I don't know where the 40,000 and you know what I'm saying?
The
Not-
40, yeah, the 40,000. So we wanted to, these interest rates are, they're potentially variable. So they might go below that 4.5%. So that range encompasses at the lower end of what that interest would be and at the higher end. So we asked our finance people and they gave us the range of 40,000 over a 15-year period, 40,000 to 112,000.
Yeah, I don't.
It's also 200,000 is the maximum loan.
Yeah, I understand.
It could be a lot less.
But there's not anything for sale in this city for $600,000. I mean, if the goal is to try to get a 2 or 3 bedroom place, whatever kind of place it is, townhome, condo, whatever. There aren't. I mean, I'm just looking right now on my screen. 2 bedroom, 1.5 bath, up to 1.2 million, including gun barrel. You got about 20 options, and that's up to 1.2 million. So, in my mind, the best case scenario for this is somebody wants to come buy a 3 bedroom, 2 bath house living unit in Boulder, and it's $1 million just for big round numbers, and the city lends them 200,000. I agree with Danny. FHA, Fannie, Freddie, all that stuff is going to complicate it, but there's ways to make that work. Enough lenders have lent for affordable housing in Boulder that works itself out. It's not the best interest rate, but you can still do it. It's doable. So back to my hypothetical, you have $1 million living unit. You borrow 200,000 from the city. You have a little bit of 5% of your own money. So you get $10,000 or whatever the number is. And then you put the deed restriction on that living unit. So you add to the affordable housing stock. It's an ownership program. It's more of the missing middle, at least in my mind, what missing middle is. Okay, great. So that's the plan. That happens 10, 15, 20 times maybe. But I don't see how that costs the city 40 grand. It costs the city hundreds of thousands of dollars per living unit over 15 years. At least $100,000. Even at 5%, it's 100,000. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just want to be transparent because I don't buy this $40,000 cost of the city for a $200,000 loan or even $150,000 loan. That's not accurate. I mean, I can do math. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, we can double check, but keep in mind, it's not like the city is taking out a mortgage. We are going and issuing debt. And that could be a line of credit, it could be issuing bonds. And so that estimate came from our finance folks, but we'll get back and double check.
well, what I think is what we're doing is we're issuing bonds and we got to make payments on those bonds. And we're just basically making those payments and then passing that money through to this plan, this program, and the people borrowing the money to buy the middle restricted unit just doesn't have to pay for that money, but the city pays for it. So
Right.
again, 200, which is, I understand that, and that makes sense. But if you have a $200,000 loan, even at 4%, I mean, that's 8,000 a year, not compounding 15 years. That's 8,000 times 15 years. That's $120,000 over 15 years, not compounding. If I compound it, it's going to be double that. So I don't see how we get $60,000 cost for this. Irrespective, I just want to put that out there that I don't know how that math's being calculated, and I do mortgages and loans all day, every day. Point one. Point two, I think that given our affordable housing big picture, as we've talked about ad nauseum, we do a great job of building for rent, smaller apartments, 50 or 100 at a time. all over town in different places, and that seems to be working really well, and it's continuing to work, and there's more in the pipeline and all that stuff. And that piece of the market is there, and it's flourishing. What I do like is finding a way to get people into 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, 2-bath, larger units, preferably single family homes or at least townhouses. And I think this program can do that. I think that's kind of what it's intended to do, in at least the way I see it, which I think is good. That's really good. But I don't see it happening in any major numbers wise. 10 units, 15 units, 20 units, maybe, you know what I mean? Which is still better than no units. It's still better than no units. It's still better to have 20, middle income, deed restricted living units in Boulder than we had before, by the fact that this program exists. All good, I guess. Seems like a lot of work for like 20 units though. Seems like a lot of effort and energy and work and focus and staff time and floating bonds and qualifying people to get 15 to 20 units of middle income deed restricted housing that we don't have. Just the big picture.
Right, but we're required to do it, right? So we're piloting a program that has potential to expand, and as Holly pointed out, is innovative. So there's risk. We're going to be lessons learned. I'm a believer in, there's no sweeping solution to affordable housing. You have to do about 100 different things that get to 1% of the problem each. So that's where I find this really encouraging. You just need 99 more programs like this, and we'll be in great shape. But it's good that we're doing it, and it's a lot of work, but we don't have a choice. The staff has to do the work and pilot the program, right?
Yeah, one thing I'll just add, it does seem like a lot of work, but there is this innovative aspect, which kind of is, there's probably a lot of front end work that's happening here that if it does show success, we can just lean on in the future. And then the other thing is it was passed by the voters in 2019, and it is a priority of city council. So, we're going for it.
I'm all for it. I'm
Right.
not saying I'm not supportive of it. It's just it's a lot to do, and I think to end up with not as many units as I don't know. Maybe we will get a lot of units. Maybe I'm wrong. And then I think the cost to the citizens, to the taxpayers, is more than what is being said. But that maybe is fine too. That's fine too.
I think Terry is offering to help if you get overwhelmed.
Yes.
Maybe not. John, you got your hand up. Oh, you muted, John. Still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just a couple questions. One of these is following up from your presentation previously to Planning Board. And I think the board made a few suggestions, and I see that there's been some changes since then. But one of the suggestions was that you contact some of the real estate appraisers and real estate professionals to see how this might actually affect the market itself by spreading additional money into the low end portion of the real estate market in Boulder. So the concern is, are we having a negative impact on pricing merely by putting $10 million additional into the demand for the low cost housing? So have you been able to talk to real estate appraisers or realtors to get their sense of what impact this might have?
So we're scheduled to later in March to talk to a group of realtors. So we are going to try to cover our bases on that, and to get their feedback on kind of both an interesting point about the impacts on the larger market dynamics, but also on to gauge if this is would be a competitive product, like the down payment assistance, to see if it would be a competitive product for households. So we have it on the schedule to get in front of them later in March.
Okay, I'd suggest that would be worth doing before taking it to council, because I'm
Mhm.
sure council will have some similar questions. And then the other thought that I had was what you're proposing here is basically to subsidize to a greater extent the middle income folks than the income restricted folks who get into the fully deed restricted housing now by giving them that 2% additional appreciation over the years. And I was wondering how we can justify that. Why we're giving a better deal to the people with more money than we are to, say, the people with less resources. So that's a concern to me that I don't fully think has been addressed.
I think that's a fantastic question. And I think part of the, one of the questions, the big questions to council, considering the changes to the program over time, it does contemplate this priority, you know, how you've just articulated it. And so it's one of the questions that we're asking of council, given these changes to the program, should we continue implementation? So question that needs to be considered for sure.
Yeah,
And a point well made.
I think you need to be as explicit as possible in raising that and demonstrating how you've evaluated it. Anyway, thanks.
John, to your point, John, I think that's baked into missing middle programs. It's a subsidy for people that make a decent amount of money because we feel they have a value to be included in our community rather than moving out to Erie or Lafayette. So it may seem a little unfair, but that's the nature of the beast.
Well, I think it's good to be explicit about it, and so that everybody understands the relative subsidies that we're applying to different types of programs and to different levels of income.
Okay. Holly, I don't know if we have any other questions, but I have a question for you. If not, anyone else care to comment or ask a question? Holly, if you could put your 3 questions back on the screen, maybe we could give you additional feedback on those. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think question 1, we may have given a qualified yes to, but if anybody disagrees with that characterization, has other comment, or would like to directly answer that question, now's a good time to do that. My answer to that would be yes. For the reasons I said, it's an innovative program and we're required to do it, and we should try to do a good job and get good results from it.
Can I give a different answer?
Absolutely.
I like that it's a pilot and that it's innovative. And so I want to support it and see what happens. I have all kinds of skepticisms that I haven't raised because it's sort of like, you know, it's in front of us and city council wants to try it. I don't feel like I need to like, you know, give all my reasons, but I'm super skeptical of this approach and for a variety of reasons, but I'm curious to see what happens and I hope it succeeds.
I share some of your skepticism, Philip, but I think we are required to pilot the program, so may as well do a good job with it.
Michael, can I just clarify? So
Sure.
when you say we're required to do it, do you mean because the voters passed it or council directed staff to do it?
It seems like the latter, Jay. Is
Okay.
that right? So go ahead and
Yep.
clarify. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not thinking about this the wrong way.
Well, the ballot measure just enables the city to issue debt. It doesn't require the city to take out the debt. But you are correct. This is a council priority. They directed staff to implement this. So, but that's why we're going back, and that's why the number one question is: should we pursue this pilot in its current iteration?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does. So in theory, we could take a vote and recommend to council that we not pursue it.
Theoretically, yes. I didn't want you to limit yourself.
Okay,
terms
Danny, you
of
got your hand
feedback.
up.
Because I'd be amiss not to say this with some of the questions and concerns that I brought up to you before, Holly, but I think I love the fact that we're moving forward with the pilot program. I love the fact that we're taking the initiative and taking the chance, because really nothing ventured, nothing gained, and we can sit here and theorize about things for time immemorial. But the best way to see what works, particularly in this field where there's so many challenges that we face, for whatever approach we take, is trial and error. And so I'm very supportive and very pleased to see both council and staff, jump into the pool and take a swim. And so, thumbs up on that is my take. If it was a permanent program, I might have some other comments, but it's a pilot. Let's fly. So that's all.
Yeah, can I follow up on that? That's
Absolutely.
that kind of captures my sentiment as well. I love the fact that it's a pilot program. I hope that we try all kinds of pilot programs. There's many things to try in the city that show a lot of promise. There are things I like about this one too, and so I don't mean to be dumping water onto a blanket here. So thanks, Danny, for your comments.
Any other comments? Okay, item 2, Holly gave a good explanation about the appropriate rate of appreciation, and I buy that. It makes numerical sense to me, although I'm not much of a numbers person. But other comments from the board on item 2?
I have one comment that just to sort of in contrast to what John said, I thought John's point was well taken and appropriate. But also there's this issue of if it's not attractive to the kind of buyers that you're targeting, then you may not have any participation at all. So I think those are kind of the two things causing tension about where the right spot is for this. So anyways, maybe that didn't need to be said. I don't know. But.
Good comment. In my mind, if I were in the market for a 2-bedroom condo for $675 and I could get a $200,000 interest-free down payment to be repaid later, that would be pretty appealing. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, well, we'll see. Can we move on to item 3? Are there additional parameters, terms, or conditions in this pilot program that should be considered? I think especially Danny and Terry brought up some really important technical matters. Do we have anything to add to those comments from anyone on the board? Philip does.
Yeah, I just hope that I would love to see a version of this presentation that said, hey, cooperative housing is welcome and targeted also.
So if I understood the comment earlier, it's not specifically excluded, but we'd have to kind of feel our way through that if a group like that materialized to apply for the program. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's how I understand that. Yes.
Holly, do you have any other questions for our board?
No, I thanks for the feedback, and I certainly appreciate the and understand that the skepticism. So, you know, you're not going to hurt my feelings here if you have any other critiques or skepticism you want to share. Part of the process here is to make sure that when we do implement this or when we do move forward, to make sure that we're taking all these critiques to heart. You know, we want to make sure that we have a strong pilot program going forward. So all of it's welcome. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you and good luck.
Thanks.
If there's no other comments, we'll move on to item B under the 5th agenda item. This is the Governor Jared Polis housing agenda. Anyone? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a hand up, Terry?
No.
Okay, sorry. Oh, that's my own hand. Sorry. Yeah, so City Council discussed this at length recently. They passed a resolution on it. It was a really interesting discussion, and I watched the whole thing. They kind of, my understanding is they came up with a general statement of support for what Polis is trying to do, but a lot of the discussion centered around a really big issue of local control versus state oversight of an issue like housing. And folks that voted against the resolution seemed to think that it was an overbearing approach that could have unintended consequences in the long run. And folks in favor seem to generally think that Boulder could just go ahead and do some of these things. They shouldn't wait for the state to require them. So anyway, that may be a good or a bad characterization, but that's the way I heard it. I'd love to hear if anybody else watched that and if you had any comment on it. I'm not sure how much we need to discuss it further because council has taken some action and it's wait and see what State House does from here on out, as far as I understand. So comments. Danny, you in the mountains? It looks like it's a blizzard out there. Oh, you're muted.
Right. I'm in my sunroom in Boulder and it is blizzarding outside
Oh,
again.
wow. Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I like the approach the council took, and while I understand the misgivings with kind of impinging upon local autonomy with a lot of these things, and I think I've said it before at other meetings, it's pretty clear to me what's going on there, which is that many local jurisdictions have done absolutely nothing regarding this issue in a long period of time. And it's pretty clear to me what the state government is trying to do is really cajole those entities into doing something, saying, if you don't, we may step in. And from that perspective, I'm supportive of the strong talk. We'll see what gets put down on paper. State and federal government, that's always a big question, but it's good to see it, and I like council's approach to it.
Yeah. Don't you think it's kind of a bully pulpit for Polis, lame duck, recently reelected by acclaim? He's really trying to get these local jurisdictions to act on their own as much as anything else.
That's exactly the way I see it. Proclamations don't cost anything, so we'll see when the rubber hits the road. But I think that it's a good start, and it's pushing that issue to the fore where it should be on a statewide basis. How that plays out from this point in time is kind of anybody's guess, but better to have that conversation up front rather than have it just kind of languish, behind other issues moving forward. So we'll see where it leads us. But I really don't think he was targeting the city of Boulder with a lot of the talk that he had there.
Probably not.
No.
Thank you. Philip, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think it's very difficult to be principled about local control versus state level regional coordination. I think we tend to glom on to whatever's convenient for us in the moment. In the moment, if you're for rent control, you are for local control, because at the moment we can't. The state level says we can't have rent control at the local level, and so and then zoning, we struggle to make the most minor incremental changes to our local codes, and we think, oh well, maybe if the state stepped in, that would make things easier. So I actually don't really know how to think about this carefully in a way that's sort of like isn't just grabbing onto kind of what I want policy wise. I don't know if that's profound or not. It's just something that is kind of out there right now, because there's a bill moving through the House right now about rent control, and then there's all this talk about zoning. So
I've been following this kind of loosely, but I could find some articles and distribute it to the board members. I think in California, there have been some high-profile cases of the state government overruling local desires on specific sites, like high-density housing sites next to transit stations, and saying, no, you're not going to have a 2-story height limit and a 10 to the acre dwelling unit. We're going to build more robustly there. I think that's happening in Santa Monica now, for example. So I don't know if I see Colorado go in that direction. It's pretty heavy-handed, but California's crisis is worse than ours, but it's also, as Polis has pointed out, not where we want to go. Okay, anything else you'd like to discuss about this? I think we'll move on to item C, zoning for affordable housing discussion continued. My goal, and we'll see if it happens, is that we can come up with a strong recommendation on this in the next few months. But I think we need a lot more input and information. I am seeking to get some of that one-on-one with folks that build townhomes on subdivided lots, for example. Just sit down and talk to them and say, I think one of our lessons learned from the last 2 meetings is you can subdivide a lot and you can do higher density on a single family lot, but you're not going to create affordability. So what kind of scenario might exist that would change that? So let's say 5 townhomes, you got one of them that's permanently affordable. If anyone would like to join me, we could have another HAB member without violating a sunshine law, but I'm meeting with some folks tomorrow, also meeting with some council people to just get their ideas. And I'm very unsettled on this issue. I think that we do need reform on single family housing, but I'm still mulling over our December presentation and how relatively ineffective that's been in some other communities, and hoping we can avoid some of those pitfalls. Terry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, love to meet with you, but just so I'm clear, this is zoning for affordable housing, not deed restricted affordable housing, but zoning for more affordable than current market rate housing. It's just the nomenclature. This is what we talked about. I think that's Carl Geiler in December, right?
Well, I think it could be potentially folded into the inclusionary housing discussion, which would allow for both market rate and deed restricted. But again, that's notional at this point. I'd like to hear from people involved in creating these kinds of projects, what's actually practical and what will work.
Love to talk about it anytime you want. We can talk about it now.
Sure. You're a developer. What do you think?
It boils down to having large lots, or just having a lot, a single family home lot that's pick your number, 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 square feet, and they're all over town. And the zoning that applies to those, whatever it is, RL this, RE whatever, has usually one or two really restrictive aspects to that zoning, whether it's an FAR limitation, whether it's an open space requirement, or whether it's a minimum lot size per dwelling unit requirement. Those are the three that I see the most. Those are very easy to change, and changing those, well, they're not easy to change. It's easy to change on paper. It's hard to actually do. But removing some of those from these single family lot, the zoning for single family lots would allow for all different kinds of things to happen. Does it make it more affordable? It makes it more affordable than it would otherwise be. And that's just the reality of the situation. And it's all my opinion. So again, going back to our hypothetical of, you have 1,000 square foot bungalow on a 7,000 square foot lot anywhere around town. Somebody buys that, tears it down, builds a $3 million house. That's option number one. Option number two is somebody buys that, but because we don't have a minimum lot requirement or an open space requirement, or the FAR is adjusted, they can build 2 or 3 townhomes that would be $1 million each, or $1.5 million each, which by no means is, affordable in the real world, but in Boulder it is. So you would end up with 2 or 3 townhomes for $1 million to $1.5 million versus one 5,000 square foot single family for $3 or $4 million. That's how that plays out. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's what would happen if we changed zoning to allow for more than one single family house on these single family lots all over town. In a nutshell.
Terry, following up on that, would you make that a sweeping change, or would you look at some kind of incremental, like one per block, or what do you think?
I don't know, tough call. And then you get into the neighborhood aspect, right? Some neighborhoods lend themselves to that more than others because of parking, right? Going into the Hill and Goss Grove and those areas and doing this would exacerbate the parking problem that they already have, and the student rental problem that they already have. But doing it in Old North Boulder or North Boulder or South Boulder, Martin Acres, places like that, I don't know. I think you can make some headway. But again, you're just trading one large $4 million new house for 2 or 3 smaller $1.5 million townhomes or duplexes or whatever. That's kind of where that goes.
I want to follow up on that, but it's Danny's turn.
Well, I absolutely agree with Terry, particularly on where the low-lying fruit is in terms of the things that are obstacles. Anytime you try to think about maximizing a lot, and it really comes down to a fundamental philosophical question where Boulder's pretty interesting scenario in that, the question is, are we a city? We're a city that in a lot of areas and a lot of neighborhoods really kind of feels like a suburb or something, right? I mean, so if you're a city and you're looking for more density, then you have to own that and say this is what city living really is. As I said, I'm on a pretty large lot over here, and I think that's really a question to struggle with. But I do think, when you look at that and the whole notion that by modifying some of those things, my suggestion is you can go carrot and stick as far as that goes too. So I wouldn't have a blanket change, but I'd have something that says you have these opportunities provided you agree to certain restraints, which could be, it could be 180 AMI, it could be a lot of different things, a lot of different approaches that you have, where you provide an incentive and then you provide some sort of restraint. But I think it's something that certainly merits taking a look at. It's going to engender a lot of heavy philosophical questions regarding what Boulder is and what it wants to be. But I think it can be done, and it will increase the supply because no matter how you slice it, it's been doing this 25 years. The more density you have, it's gonna take some of the pressures off of pricing. It's just the way of the world, right? If you have 3 townhomes instead of 1 trophy home, you're gonna have something that's, relatively speaking, at least more affordable. And that's in California, that's in Boulder, that's wherever. At some point in time, we have to wrap our heads around that and stop dancing around that issue and say, what are we gonna do? And again, are we a city? Are we not a city? And from that point, then we can start figuring out what the policy changes are that can help implement that. So, but I absolutely agree with everything Terry said.
So following up on what Terry said, and we've had this evolving conversation. You subdivide a lot, you get some townhomes that are less than the big single family home, but you don't really have anything that's affordable by that, say 80 to 120 AMI definition. Again, what if you could combine lot subdividing with an inclusionary housing formula? You build 5, one's got to be deed restricted. The other 4 can be priced however you want. I mean, there are $2 and $3 million townhomes being built now that are selling down in West Pearl, for example, and on Folsom. It seems like you'd be getting more if you had that, and I see that as a carrot, not a stick. You at least be getting that one home that's actually affordable to a middle income home buyer. And if it were a bigger lot and you could do more townhomes, you'd be getting more out of that. Maybe that would have application in East Arapahoe, for example. So
Yep.
any thoughts or comments on that approach?
I think it's a good idea. If the lot's big enough, or you can design it to do it, you just have to incentivize the developer. They're going to put it on a spreadsheet, and they're going to look at, if I build 3 townhomes instead of 1 big house, what does that mean as far as profit goes? Versus if I build 5 townhomes and one of them's deed restricted and they're smaller instead of 1 big house, what does that mean, right? So it's just I think it's to a certain extent just math and determining, can you design it on that lot? Will it work? Will the zoning allow it? Of course, what we're talking about. And then what does it mean at the end, So I think your idea is good, Michael, by incentivizing more density or more townhomes in our little hypothetical here and restricting 1 or 2 of them. And maybe you get to a point where there's that, it makes sense to do that, right? It makes sense. It makes economic sense to do that. And if it does, then let's do it. And I think carrying this forward, what Danny was talking about, is Boulder a city or is it a suburb? Our what we've done the last 15, 20 years by building density along transit corridors on Folsom, on Broadway, on 28th Street, 30th Street, we're densifying certain areas, and we've done a good job of that, if that's what you like. But I think this is a little different. This is taking what would otherwise be single family homes in a neighborhood and turning them into 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever townhomes or condos or whatever. And if I remember, Jay, the large lot discussion that came up, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago, no more big houses on big lots. That didn't really gain the traction that I think a lot of people thought it was going to gain. I personally think, is that right, Jay? Am I saying that right?
Yes, basically. I mean, it was longer than just a few years ago, but
Yeah, but we all thought, oh, these big lots and big houses and no more of those. But that didn't really happen, because I think the pushback was so many people have invested so much money in these big houses on these large lots. And it's like, well, now I don't want 3 townhomes next to my pick your crazy number house, $8 million house, whatever the number is these days, which is nuts. But I think that's where, Danny, what you're talking about is, are we going to do this in the suburbs of Boulder, or are we going to do it, along Folsom and Broadway and 28th Street and Arapahoe and 30th and all the places that are more transit based? And I don't see it happening. I don't know. Maybe it can happen on those corridors. I mean, you drive down Broadway and there's single family houses facing Broadway. You drive down, I don't know, there's just not, I think it's more in the neighborhoods. It's more in the Old North Boulders. It's more in the Martin Acres. It's more in the,
Mhm.
in those types of places, you know, that this can happen. But judging by how the large house, large lot discussion went, I don't know how much traction you're going to get by all of a sudden spot zoning or changing zoning in these neighborhoods where there's big, I don't know.
Right. I don't see that much opportunity or fodder in those corridors to do it, because even when you have those single family homes, they're pretty tight. That's more of an urban feel to it. So it's got to be some of those other areas, which brings up that, you know, fundamental philosophical question. What I would say, Michael, that's what you just brought up. That's exactly what I'm saying with carrot and stick is, you know, here's the carrot, you know, you can build more units. Some of them have to have some sort of restriction, and it could be higher. It could be 160 AMI, whatever it may be. But you know, you have to account for that in some way, shape, or form as well. And that would be the only way that it would work, is that we have some sort of restriction on it. But that said, there's some potential there. It's just pretty challenging, because there's, you know, it's taken two core philosophies that Boulder and a lot of other communities in Colorado that you know, who's heading harder in the right place. These don't run hand in hand necessarily, which is we want to restrict density as much as we can, but then we also want to have as much affordable housing as we can. And those two things in a lot of this state, in California, et cetera, has really started to run its course, because density restrictions lead to incredibly high spikes in housing prices. And that's what we're seeing in every single community that we're talking about. So.
And as a citizen
So-
who drives more than I probably should, turning left pretty much anywhere is really difficult without a light. So the more density, there's other consequences to that. Steve Pomerantz writes about it all the time. We talk about density to solve the housing problem, affordable housing problem, but there's consequences to density. There's traffic, there's more people, there's all kinds of stuff. So, you know, trying to turn left onto Broadway or anywhere else is harder than it's ever been since I've been a kid.
Says Terry, who drives a truck on a bike tour.
I do. Sure.
Philip's not gonna let you forget that.
You shouldn't either. You shouldn't.
Well,
So I'm going to pose that there could be an interesting conversation about this around the topic of neighborhood character, which is something we hear people often raising their voices in Boulder and saying, I really want to preserve my neighborhood character. I love my neighborhood character. What they never talk about is the impact of neighborhood character of a 7,000 square foot home replacing a 1,000 square foot home, which is essentially what happened. But what I'm looking at, actually, if it weren't so dark across my alley on 11th Street, you know, why not get some other community benefit out of that building envelope with also some impact on neighborhood character, but maybe not so negative. You know, you get to have different kinds of neighbors. And I don't know if that conversation would go anywhere, but it's interesting to hear the people who are so protective of neighborhood character and they don't really raise their voices about the impact of very large homes.
except the adjacent neighbors. They always protest.
Yeah.
Um,
The carbon footprint of those gigantic homes is remarkable. Like absolutely remarkable. So I mean, if we're talking those things, that's another thing to talk about as well, right? It's not a straight vector there. So
I have a kind of a stack of things that I've built up. Were you trying to move on, Michael, or is it okay if I make a few comments?
You know, at 7:55, we have time.
Yeah,
I
great.
do fall asleep about 9 o'clock, but we still have time.
Yeah, well, Danny was saying whether we're deciding whether to be a suburb or a city. It reminds me of something that I'm frequently saying to people. You know, there's kind of a fear that there's only one density that's higher than Boulder, and that's Manhattan. And it's just not true, right? There's a lot of gradations between here. in Manhattan, and we could double or triple in population and still be nothing like Manhattan. We could be more like Copenhagen and have amazing cycling and transit and pedestrian infrastructure. So I want to live in a pedestrian district where I can have a light carbon footprint. I want to make those opportunities available to a lot more people who are in the marketplace trying to make ethical decisions about how they can live lightly on the planet. And so I do want Boulder to be a city in the sense that I want to have transit available. I want to have residential districts that are dense and compact, so I can, and me and my neighbors can live lightly on the planet. I do want to channel David Adamson, and I was thinking about what I was going to say before I noticed that he was actually on the call. Thank you for attending, David. When so much of what the pilot that he's trying to promote really fits into a lot of the issues that we're discussing, having to do with parking, having to do with neighborhood character, having to do with how do you when the land increases in value, when you are allowed to put more stuff on it, do we just give that value away, or is there a way to recapture that? Well, there's ways of recapturing that through community land trust or through the kind of community benefit that Michael was bringing up. For my part, I love the notion of being able to have affordable housing in a well-established neighborhood, and the notion of taking a footprint that looks like a McMansion or a large 5,000 square foot house, and using that as something that you see from the street that looks like a mansion, but inside is built with micro condos and shared living space, and you have the car share to deal with parking. I think there's to make that happen, there's all kinds of incentives you could put in place to keep the parking from going out of control, to keep it looking for like you're putting apartment buildings next to houses, so maintaining character, neighborhood integrity, keeping for me, I always say that I would love to see more people in Boulder and fewer cars. And so there is a parking problem, but the one of the things about reducing parking and reducing the ability to have cars is it reduces demand. Not everyone wants to live in a place where they don't have access to their own car where they can park for free. And one of the things, and this just ties into like a philosophical thing. We have all kinds of programs that increase demand, where we subsidize demand, the mortgage interest rate deduction, this new pilot for down payment. If you think about it in terms of supply and demand, we're like actually increasing pressure on demand, which goes to John Gersel's question earlier about what does it mean to inject $10 million more dollars into buyers' pockets, and I think there's important ways to think about increasing supply. There's important ways to think about reducing demand. One of those main things to me is just make it more expensive to own cars. And parking should be expensive. The cars should be expensive. We should reclaim a lot of the space and infrastructure that they take up. And so I know that wasn't, I'm kind of way off topic in terms of what tweaks should we make to zoning. But I guess that's kind of my whole point. To me, it's not about making tweaks to zoning. We got bigger, pictures to incorporate here. So I want to see us not whittle away at the edges, but really grapple with what kind of city do we want to have, and propose some things that are a bit more radical than tweaking a minimum lot size. I don't want to diminish that as not important. If that's something that's really preventing people from doing useful things, let's address that. But Yeah, anyways, I can hear myself rambling, but and I'm sure I'm gonna, as soon as I quit talking, I'll think of 3 things I wish I had said, but
That's why you're on the board, Philip. I appreciate your comments. You know, I've said it before, there are a lot of little things you can do that add up to the big picture, and tweaking zoning in my mind is certainly one of them. My personal goal is to do more fact finding and talking to people essentially one-on-one on this issue to help incubate ideas, because I don't think anybody has the answers on this yet. And then my hope is that we can come to some kind of agreement on a recommendation in the spring. And maybe it's for a pilot program. I don't know if it's for sweeping to changes to zoning. We're not there yet. But you know, it's a big part of it. Gentle infill, whatever you want to call it. So I do think that that will support some of the goals that you just described, Philip. And it's worth pursuing, and it's kind of a brave new world, like the down payment assistance. We're going to come up with some things that maybe haven't been tried other places, I would hope. John?
Just wanted to add a little bit to Phil's comments, which I think are very well thought out and expressed. And that is that in addition to zoning types of issues, I would think that taxation and other aspects of discouraging big houses are an avenue that have not yet been explored in Boulder, and there would be some potential there to diminish the incentives by having taxes increased more for very large houses, and also houses that are standing empty for half or 3/4 of the year. It seems to me that those are aspects that might also play a role in what ultimately happens on these properties.
or houses that are 3/4 empty. There's tens of thousands of empty bedrooms in our beloved city.
I think it's been done on a limited basis, and although Philip says we don't want to become Manhattan, I think Manhattan is where those things have been done. It's going to have transfer taxes on homes that sell over a certain amount of money, taxes on folks that don't occupy their homes for at least 6 months a year, and so forth. But maybe there are other examples in places that are more comparable to Boulder.
I think it's always better to incentivize than to penalize. Philosophically. Incentivize people to do what we want them to do, not penalize them for not doing what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's a philosophical discussion.
Well, it's a good point. Would it be enough to offer an alternative zoning where splitting a lot and providing some affordability is more economically appealing than building one big house? Could you see that happening, Terry?
You broke up there. Say that again.
I said, could you see that happening? Did you hear my point before then?
No, you were fuzzy.
Oh, okay. What I said is there a scenario where a zoning incentive to split a lot, build townhomes, maybe provide some affordability is economically equally appealing to building one big house?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's very much so. Very much so. I think it would happen all over the place if it was allowed to have it happen.
Okay.
It's from a market, okay, simple answer. From a marketing perspective, it's a lot easier to sell $3.5 million townhomes than it is one $6 million house, right? Or whatever, you understand the concept. You diversify your risk, you have flexibility. I think a lot of people would do it, and you see it being done right now in the transit corridors that we're talking about, Folsom and Pearl and all those places. But anyway, that's again, a whole big discussion about zoning and allowing for density.
Okay, well, I suggest we keep this on the agenda for March meeting. Everyone brings some other zoning ideas to that meeting. I'm going to send an invitation to join me for some of the meetings I'm have, and I think we'll be limited to one RSVP, so we don't have more than 2 HAB members present. And if folks want to come shoot the breeze about zoning initiatives, it'd be great to see you in person.
Love it.
Okay, any other comments before we go to item D, listening session topics continued?
I don't see that.
So as I recall, where we left the listening topic conversation last time
Michael?
was that we really want to be.
Are we looking
Yeah.
at the agenda, Michael?
Yeah, Michael, I think you're looking at an old agenda. Remember, we discussed with the chairs to removing the item and revisiting it when we had more information about when the board could resume in person.
Right. I'm looking at today's agenda, but listening sessions is listed as item D.
No.
Not in anyone else's. Sorry, Michael.
Oh, maybe I don't have the latest agenda. It
So I
says
think
February
next is,
22nd, I swear. Here, I'll hold it up.
Maybe
for
you have the
Great.
latest.
That's
Does
funny.
say draft on it. Okay, so there is no item D. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yep.
Going to 6 matters from staff.
Thank you. Thank you. Matters from staff, we were going to talk about the community working group with the airport and getting a HAB member involved as a liaison to that group. So I think there's a simple question here. Does anybody want to do that?
I do.
Yay!
I didn't want to jump the gun in case someone else was eager, but yeah, I'd be happy to do that if there's not a lot of competition.
Do we need to nominate Philip, or is he just going to get it by acclaim?
I mean, you could take formal action. You could just do a straw poll. That'd be fine.
Okay, all in favor of Philip as the liaison to the community working group for the Boulder Airport? Cool.
Yeah, me. I'll send that.
Other
So sorry.
matters from the staff.
Yep. So Philip, on Monday at 3 p.m., they're gonna you'll get a meeting invite, and staff will give you an overview of what to expect on the advisory group for the airport.
Okay, so that's a meeting at 3 this coming Monday.
Yep. So if you could just mark your calendar, hopefully you're available. If not, I'm sure they could figure something out.
No, I can be there.
Okay.
Thank you, Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. Appreciate you volunteering. So I have a couple things. So that Michael covered the HAB interviews. The interviews actually already happened. They were last Friday and Tuesday, yesterday. All of those interviews are online. You could look at them if you want to, but I think we do have some fantastic candidates. So I don't think we can really go wrong. And so March 16th is when council will make the actual decision to appoint the 2 new members. Any questions about that? All good? All right.
No,
Michael had suggested that I give just a sort of a summary or update of recent or upcoming housing development in the city. And I was like, well, I could probably figure out how to do that. And then I got a spreadsheet of all the development that's happening in Boulder, and it's pretty overwhelming. So I need to chat with Michael and Danny a little bit more about what would be most useful for the group. There are, I mean, it's interesting. There are some big projects coming up, you know, 100, 200, 300 unit projects all over the city. If you are interested, I'm more than happy to, you know, share some of that information. But I don't want to take up a lot of time with it if it's not of great interest as well. So if you have thoughts on that, let us know, and we'll come back next time with something more in depth. What else? So yeah, you were talking about the zoning for affordable housing. So Carl Geiler will return at our March meeting, March 22nd. And he will basically share the study session memo because the council study session is on the 23rd, the very next day. But he will share whatever feedback that you have on the 23rd with council. So keep that in mind. Also, Lisa Hood will be back talking about EDUs. So there'll be a fairly detailed proposal for changes to the code that you guys will get to weigh in on as well. I think that's it. Any questions? Any other thoughts? Anything you want to hear more about from the city?
One, Jay, I think when we had our chairs meeting, you mentioned we need to start thinking about a retreat in 2023. Is it too early to talk about that?
I put it on the work plan for April to start talking about it. Typically it happens in June. But you know, it's pretty flexible as to when you want to do it. So yeah, I would say it might be a little premature, but start thinking about, yeah, what kind of retreat do you want? You know, in the past, we'll be able to have it in person this time. We've had facilitated retreats in the past. We do have money in the budget. I'm not sure you guys really need it. I think you all are function fairly well as a group. So I would actually recommend not having a facilitator, but it's up to you guys. So just some things to think about, and we'll talk about it more in April.
We will have 2 new members. So it's definitely going to be useful. Whether we need a facilitator or not is a good question.
Yep.
Well, June sounds good to me. In person sounds good. Hawaii sounds good. Any other thoughts? Okay, thank you, Jay. We'll have a meeting debrief. We approved our minutes. We had 2 items of public participation. We covered a really good presentation. Oh, sorry, John.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but I just wanted to mention that I'm going off planning board on the same schedule that you're getting your new members. And so I'd just like to say thanks. I think this is my last meeting as a planning board liaison anyway. So just wanted to let you know and say thanks for good and interesting meetings and conversations.
John,
So
it was great. It was great working with you, and sad to see you're not going to be around, and really appreciate you know, enduring us and all the insight and support and knowledge that you've brought here. So thank you so much. I miss you.
Okay, well, thank you and goodbye.
I second that, John. You've been really a great voice as a liaison, and really appreciated the joint meeting with Planning Board earlier this month or last month.
John, thank you, buddy. It's been great. And I always want to tell you this, you have a voice for radio.
He does.
You could be like an announcer. You know what I mean? You have this great radio voice.
That is honestly you're the first person who ever said anything like that. So thank you. I'll tell my family.
I can hear you announcing like a baseball.
I think
it would be great. I'd listen just because of the voice.
It's out of here. You know, you look good on TV too, but he's right about the radio voice. I'm going to rewind a little bit because I meant to mention earlier, I'm attending a seminar next week on missing middle housing in Denver, and the presenter wrote a book on this topic, Dan Paralek. So it's a private event. I can't invite everybody along, but I'll take notes and send those notes out next week. And it's hosted by the CU Denver College of Architecture and Planning and Urban Design. Back to the meeting debrief. Let's
Can you bring
see.
us back food?
Yeah, I'll bring back food. Yeah. I'm speaking of food, I'm really hungry. We had a great presentation on middle income down payment pilot. We were able to give input on that. We talked a little bit more about the Polis housing agenda. We had a really good discussion about zoning for affordable housing that I think is going to lead to some recommendations later in the spring. We did not talk about listening sessions. We got some updates from Jason Net and staff. And our next meeting is Wednesday, March 22nd. We hope in person at 6 p.m. I will just return from a 2-week vacation, so I hope I will be somewhat focused and present. I will do my best. Any other questions, or do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to-
Motion so made. Did I see a second?
Second.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, okay, there's a hand. All in favor? See everybody soon. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you,
Good night.
everybody.
Stay warm.
Yeah.